Thank you all, and thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here in London, finally over the jet lag after a couple days. And I look forward to telling you a little bit more about our collaboration with OpenAthens and also EBSCO as our partner in the US. I'm pleased to be visiting you all from Athens, Georgia, which is the home of the University of Georgia. We are the oldest public university in the US, chartered way back in 1785. Not old by English standards, but pretty old for US standards. Also, Athens is home, for many of you may know, of REM and the B-52s. It's purely coincidence that we are in Athens and that we're using OpenAthens. Although we tell people all the time that we asked you all for a substantial naming rights discount and did not get it. So, but thank you again for everyone that coordinated my presence here, and I really appreciate it. I'd like to give you all some, that's my slide, sorry. Got to get used to two different things. Just wanted to give you all a little context for who we are and what we do. Galileo started way back in 1995 and has primarily been a portal site, as you see at the top. We refer to our portal site as Mother Galileo. This was sort of the first thing that we did, the first giant database of databases for our universities and colleges in the university system. At the time, there were around 30. Mergers have taken us down to around 26 institutions in our university system, but we've also now expanded, and I'll go through sort of the list of all of the different libraries that use Galileo portal in a few minutes. You see the lines of interactivity. We have a group of services that we offer in addition now just to the portal. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see the Galileo interconnected libraries. I did some sort of measuring of distances. We have all of our university system institutions interconnected. The nearest to furthest, north to south, is about 350 miles. We guarantee next day delivery between all of our institutions in the university system through Galileo interconnected libraries for physical materials, which is a great thing to have achieved in a state that's, I'll go through this a little bit later, we're about 60% of a UK in size. So at the bottom of the screen, you see the Digital Library of Georgia. I'll talk a little bit about sort of the redevelopment of Galileo and the future that we're forging with OpenAthens and authentication at our core here. But so this is a site that has been redone in the last year. We've really got a new and innovative development team. We've added new developers this year. So this site is the product of that. We've used blacklight technology to feed the search, make a much more effective search, and we're continuing to improve the archival metadata there. And we're also planning on an implementation of archive space in the coming year for the academic institutions in the state in order to further enhance and improve that archival data. We maintain the New Georgia Encyclopedia and do support for them. We actually host their website. The New Georgia Encyclopedia is just that. It's an encyclopedia that focuses on Georgia history, Georgia people, and things like civil rights in Georgia, other things, really a good focus there. And our most recent initiative is our open educational repository of materials, also called Affordable Learning Georgia. And to date, Affordable Learning Georgia went live in 2014-15, and to date we've saved college students in the university system $31 million on textbooks through the Open Textbook Program. It's a grant-based program. We're offering grants to faculty members to create textbooks and make them open. So that's a little bit about what we do and sort of the component parts of Galileo. We also have our Georgia Knowledge Repository. We do maintain an institutional repository for all the institutions in the state. This is a pretty simple setup, honestly. We had envisioned this would be something much more complex, and we're just now starting to reconvene committees around the Georgia Knowledge Repository. We want to revive it. Right now, all it is an EDS custom catalog with all of the institutional repository data for all the institutions in the state who'd like to contribute that. We screen scrape it basically and cram it in there. So that's what we're doing with the Georgia Knowledge Repository now, but we hope to grow and evolve that into something more robust in the not too distant future. So with that, we're also, just a little bit about who we are by the numbers. Our service population potentially is 9 million users, so any citizen in the state of Georgia that has a library card can access Galileo. We have 26 state university system institutions. Those are our larger institutions. We have 22 technical colleges. Technical colleges are very vibrant in Georgia. We have a lot of interaction with them as a separate unit of the university system, and we work with very closely with their libraries as well. We also provide services on a pay-in basis to our private colleges and universities, most of which are part of Galileo. And we serve 62 public library systems, and I think that is right around 300 some odd branches. And amazingly, almost half of our population has a library card, 4.2 million public library cards, which is a remarkable service population to have to work with. 181 public school systems, and that's 2,000 plus schools. We serve schools right now at the system level. And then those 27 private K-12 schools also pay in on a pay-in basis. So we serve a huge population. And I won't dig into all the different systems that we've had to work with in terms of interoperability with this, but I'll hit at a couple of them. The university system, for example, uses Alma Primo for some discovery and for catalog, but not full discovery. We use EDS from EBSCO for discovery service across the Galileo portal. The technical colleges use Alma Primo for both discovery and their catalog. The private colleges and universities use everything from WMS to Circe Dynix across the board. Our public library systems, for the most part, use Evergreen open source, which was built and discovered in Georgia and has been thriving in Georgia since. That's through our Pine system. We have 8 outlier systems that use other things, but we're working through that. 181 public school systems, actually a surprising number, have their own catalogs, and 22 private schools. They will be importing their IDP data as spreadsheets in most cases. So you get the idea of some of the types of things, some of the issues with systems operability that we're working with and the size of the implementation that we're doing. So it's been a challenge, but it's been a fun challenge. And again, just to offer a little bit of context and to tell you a little bit about our strategic planning and our strategic vision, which is what I want to sort of share with you and sort of the meaning that OpenAthens has had for us through this process. As I said, we're about 60% of the UK. I grafted Georgia onto the UK there so that you can see. And population-wise, we're about 1/6 of the UK. So, but that's a pretty good sized service population, a pretty good geographic area to deal with. And it also means, that's why I wanted to share with you our ability to go from the very top of the state to the very bottom of the state with resource delivery for physical materials as one a day. I think we're pretty impressive. I like what we do. And I think we have a good growing mission and vision with new leadership. So with strategic planning, we do a lot more than just negotiate with vendors, put our databases in a portal, and go. We also are very connected to the planning process for the university system and for our private colleges and universities. We want to know what they're doing. We do a lot of outreach to them. We want to connect with their needs. And the strategic plan that we did in 2016-17 with the input of a lot of those people is really driving everything that we do now. Our goal was to facilitate the creation of knowledge, and we really wanted to focus in on that creation of knowledge because we're not just putting it out there for people, we're also building databases, we're putting up knowledge, we're putting up archival materials, we're really working in all those areas, and we also want our people, our patrons, our users to be able to create knowledge. Provide tools and resources for all Georgians to meet their lifelong learning needs. As mentioned, K-12 kids, my daughter is 7, she already uses Galileo. Well, Dad works there, so naturally. She accesses a resource called Tumblebooks at our public library that's read-alongs for kids. It's just amazing. And so we want people to be able to enjoy Galileo from the time they're that age all the way to the time they're retired, they're looking for information, they're making travel plans. We want to facilitate their information needs across their lives. So again, Georgia is a fairly large state. As I mentioned, we're slightly more than half of UK, 1/6 of UK population. And as Christina, Jake, V, and Rob will note, we like to have our room to move around. So Christina always looks at the roads that we go on in Georgia, and she's just amazed by the size of our roads. So where does OpenAthens come into play with our strategic planning and mission? I don't want to read every single detail of this, but we wanted to serve Georgia as a statewide virtual library, as we've done in the past, But the two main things that people really wanted were interfaces that were easy to access and design and customize to meet the needs of Galileo libraries and the learners they serve. So we really wanted to become better at providing access. We want to rearrange things so that they're, right now we have alphabetical and subject lists, and that's not ideal. People find things, we have thousands of resources per institution. They need a better way to find things that are in a meaningful way for them. And customization through OpenAthens will help us out with that in the long term. And then finally, facilitate the efficient and cost-effective provision of library services across the state through collaborative resource acquisition, training, and sharing of workflows, resources, and technological infrastructure. And right now, we provide proxy services for over 400 accounts in Galileo, if you will. So that technological infrastructure we're rebuilding essentially around OpenAthens. We decided authentication was the best base for this, and that was the direction that we were going to go in. We also knew that OpenAthens would serve our customization needs going forward, so that made it a logical choice for us. So also in our strategic plan, we didn't want to come up short on the innovation piece. Change and improve through increased efficiency and optimization, but also considered risk-taking, agility, and creativity. We've really taken the risk-taking to heart. In the US, we don't have quite the groundswell of usage of OpenAthens and other federated solutions as you all have here in Europe and the UK. So we're really having to work with a lot of our vendors. OpenAthens is doing great work with our vendors to get them on board. And so we are taking a bit of a risk to be at the bleeding edge of authentication in the US as a large consortium. It was interesting, I went to the Electronic Resources and Libraries Conference, and we were hearing people, other OpenAthens presentations at smaller institutions. All of a sudden, all of these vendors who hadn't been working for us before came flooding in and saying, okay, we'll work with you. We were like, you're welcome. It was really kind of fun to see that in action. No, we don't want to take full credit for that because OpenAthens and EBSCO have done some great work there too, but we hope that we helped to move the bar further along. So we also wanted to take in things like what this innovation in action was going to look like. You know, we knew that we were going to have an OpenAthens implementation in front of us at this point. We also wanted to make a shift in our design process. We had always been designing by whatever was being thrown from various departments. Design and development on our web presence and for our services had been done that way. Just throw it at the wall. If it's stuck, it got development priority. We moved to a more agile design process, and probably just pretty much as soon as I get back, we'll be convening our first committee meeting for a new user-centered design committee. We're calling them Galileo Development Advisory Committee. We didn't want them to have too much power, so we made sure to use careful wording there, advisory. But we'll be relying on them to help us out with things like testing. Their first project, and we sort of learned this from V. Rogacheva, will be to create some user personalities. So what are your users doing? What are their user behaviors? So we'll be working to do that and getting some feedback from them and the local libraries on that as we go through the process. And again, this will involve for us a lot of research and experimentation because a lot of these initiatives come from sort of the corporate world. So we have to make them fit the academic environment and the Galileo environment specifically. So we spend a lot of time, trying things out, see how they work. We're very early on in the agile process. OpenAthens has given us some good information and feedback on that. Simon at OpenAthens has worked with us and shared some information. So we've been taking risks, and so far they've been paying off. And we see good benefits and good dividends from moving to this user-centered process. So really we see the authentication, as I mentioned, as the cornerstone for new development for us. Taking a risk. It would have been very easy for me to sit back and say, hey, we can take on some other development process, we can develop SAML locally, we've done some of that already, we could stick with easy proxy and go in that direction. But then we saw the opportunities with things like statistics that OpenAthens provided and user-specific attributes that we could pass and provide customized services. We saw our vision is, we talk about attributes and what's going to be passed, but we really hope that we'll be able to at least see users by department, that we'll be able to point nursing students to specifically nursing resources as they begin to work in the Galileo portal. So that's an ambitious goal for us, and we hope to be able to do that. I also like, this is the early statistical picture from one of our technical colleges that is live with OpenAthens. Just recently, we're in the in-between stages with a lot of our pilot libraries going live with OpenAthens. And we have Georgia State University, which is over 30,000 students, and one of our newest libraries to be connected. And what's interesting with Georgia State is they're disconnected. They're not live with OpenAthens. None of their systems are interconnected with OpenAthens yet. They're getting a huge amount of usage, and this speaks well to the RA21 initiative. They are getting a huge amount of usage just from scholars going in, finding the OpenAthens box, and just following it on in already. Their statistics are, Via shared them with me, they're just huge. So that really bodes well for us. We've also heard from Georgia Tech, which is a very prestigious technical college, technical institution in Georgia, that the usage has been good there, and from that Google Scholar searching side. So that really kind of justifies this as a foundation for new development for us. So we have, as I mentioned, begun new development. I won't even show you our old site. It's kind of ugly. it kind of looks like 1996 a little bit, just because we haven't done a lot with it from a development perspective in a while. We're starting, and again, this has been interesting. V recommended a software package that one of our web developers has been using to create some new wireframes. So we've wireframed out what a basic Galileo site and search front page might look like. We've been working to implement the embedded wayfinder, and that'll be a part of our new page so that we'll pass users directly through the Galileo portal. They'll be authenticated when they log in and have access to everything without having to click back and forth. And then we've also mocked up one of the things that we envision is more of a bento box type search approach to help users sort resources more effectively, and we've mocked that up. We have lots of Worm Ipsum Dolor sediment in there, so we haven't really done this yet, but we're looking forward to using Blacklight and other technologies to do further development there. So I also want to make sure that we point to how we can have an impact on our academic initiatives across Georgia. So I mentioned Affordable Learning Georgia, and one of the simplest things that we'll be able to do that Affordable Learning Georgia is challenged by now, thanks to OpenAthens, is we'll be able to put up a login wall so that faculty members from across the university system can post things like tests or other things that they want to share as part of their peripheral materials for the Affordable Learning Georgia program. So in the past, they really don't have any effective means to do that, but when we can provide authentication to a site that's specific for them to load that, it'll work really well. It'll also help us to expand the analysis of access and use, which has been really important for Affordable Learning Georgia. That program, again, as I mentioned, it saved us $31 million across the university system for our students, so in just a few years' time. So we're very excited to continue to grow that. Complete College Georgia and the Momentum Year is a big focus for our university system, really looking to emphasize those core English and math skills early on, get those 9 credits in students' academic focus area early. This is where we really feel like OpenAthens can play a role as well. When that student identifies that academic focus area, if we can get that as an attribute, we can customize a Galileo page to help them to do that work that they'd like to do. And then finally, 30 credits in their first year, which is pretty average for a Georgia student, but that's just to make sure they get it done and they stay on track. So the College 2025 initiative, again, 60% of Georgia's jobs will require some form of college education by 2025, and only 45.5% roughly of our young adults will qualify for that right now. So it's really important that we bring more education, better services, and better support to initiatives like this through Galileo to the state. So, and then collaboration has been such an important part of all this. I joke that collaboration is either people writing on really big sheets of paper or writing on really small sheets of paper. That's generally my definition of collaboration. But seriously, I love seeing these photographs. This is our executive director, Lucy Harrison. We always love it that we catch Lucy in funky poses. She often talks through the hands out wide like this, and we have often put accordions through Photoshop in her hands. So this is just, on the far left you see, this was OpenAthens' first visit to Georgia. And they saw the University of Georgia main library And it's 7 stories, and it was awesome to kind of see their looks and looking up and looking around a lot. It's a pretty big library. But we spent a lot of time sitting down, really focused on both our user needs, V and the team. They spent so much time on the ground in Athens, working with us, working with our patrons, seeing them work. A very busy University of Georgia coffee shop in the middle of the day was fascinating. V can run really fast to catch a user and ask them questions. Talk about the guerrilla side of it. She's fantastic at that. So that was such a valuable experience for us, and really understanding what OpenAthens could do for us, really helping them understand the complexity of our organization, although I'd say we do discover new complexities almost every day. But we just have had so much fun working through all of this. Some of this is from the strategic planning meetings. We met with all of our different constituent groups that you saw earlier, our public libraries, our academic libraries, our private academic libraries. So we really do focus on that, and it's really at the core of our mission. And I know sometimes it's hard to ask people, you think you've got the right idea, you think you're ready to go, you think you're ready to move on something, and it's really hard to make that ask. Maybe we should ask some opinions on this, but I just encourage you. That's one thing I've learned is you're always better for having asked in the end. So that's what we do. Sometimes we're pained. I'll sit in Lucy's office. Should we ask this group if we should do this? No, we should just do it. No, let's ask them. And so it's usually a good decision. So I know that was a very quick overview of Galileo. I welcome any questions. I always say burning questions because I often go over time. But thank you all for having me. Again, I welcome your questions.